The vanishing. It had been 500,000 years since the last known human transmission. 500,000 years of silence. Not a distress call, not a warning, not even a whisper. One day, humanity was everywhere, charting the stars, terraforming worlds, pushing into the furthest corners of the galaxy, and the next, they were gone. Clean, quiet, as if someone had erased them from reality with a single invisible stroke. Captain Zar didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in myths or ancient curses or bedtime stories told to scare the hatchlings. But even he had to admit this was something else. He stood at the observation deck of his flagship, staring out at the void. A million pinpricks of light blinked back at him, stars, worlds, remnants of the great galactic tapestry that had been woven over eons. And yet one part of that tapestry remained torn, frayed at the edge where the humans used to be. They had been powerful. Too powerful, some would argue. Bold, brilliant, and dangerously unpredictable. They weren't the oldest species, nor the strongest physically. But their adaptability, their ambition, and their sheer will to survive had made them feared. And respected. Zar's own people, the Xylar, had once faced them in battle nearly 1,000,000 standard cycles ago. The conflict had been short, but brutal. His ancestors had spoken of it in hushed tones, not because they had lost, but because they had barely survived. The humans had fought like creatures who didn't understand fear, like they'd already seen death and learned how to use it. But then, without reason or explanation, they disappeared. Entire colonies went dark within hours. Orbital stations powered down. Megacities capable of housing tens of millions stood still, their lights extinguished, their systems frozen in time. There were no signs of war, no cataclysmic event, no galactic plague, just an eerie, unified withdrawal from existence. Some said it was suicide. Others believed it was transcendence, that the humans had evolved past the need for physical form and simply moved into a new plane of being. A few scholars theorized they had discovered something at the edge of space, something so dangerous or alluring that it pulled them all away. But no theory explained the most unsettling part of it all. The systems they left behind kept working. Power grids, satellite arrays, defense platforms, manufacturing drones, all of them, somehow continued to hum in low silence, maintaining their loops, dormant, obedient, waiting. As the centuries turned into millennia, fear gave way to myth, to legend, to bedtime stories told to alien children. Don't go near the blue world. The ghosts will get you. Earth's origin planet became forbidden territory. A no-fly zone marked in every star map as unresponsive, unstable, or the more poetic, home of the sleeping lion. No one dared approach it. Until now, Zar hadn't come to Earth looking for conquest. He hadn't come for glory or spoils or to test the rumors. He came for truth. "I've never seen a world so quiet," said Lieutenant Lear, the navigation officer, her voice low. She stood beside Zar at the viewport, eyes locked on the blue-green sphere that slowly grew larger in the distance. "It looks alive," she added. "But there's nothing. No signals, no activity." Zar nodded. Still waters, high, deep engines. He could feel it in his bones. Earth wasn't dead, it was waiting. Behind them, Dran, the ship's chief science officer, adjusted his many-armed interface, scanning layers of data as they streamed in from the long-range sensors. His voice, always calm and measured, now carried an edge of confusion. "Captain," he said, "I'm getting elevated radiation signatures. But not from decay. From activity. Orbital structures. Something's still running up there." Zar turned. "Defense systems?" "Unclear," Dran replied. "They're not broadcasting, but they're warm. Too warm to be dead. Minimal drift. Stable orbital positions. That means course correction systems are active." "Autonomous?" Eller asked. "Possibly. Or," he hesitated, "standby mode." Zar's claws tapped slowly on the edge of the console. It wasn't just the machines that bothered him. It was the precision, the patience. It was like staring at a battlefield a second before the first shot is fired, but never knowing who would shoot. "Captain," said the communications officer, "we've completed long-range scans of the planet's surface. Still no life signs. Cities are overgrown. Infrastructure's collapsed in most regions. No visible energy fields or urban lighting." Zar took a deep breath. "So it's abandoned?" "Yes, sir, but..." He turned. "But what?" "There are pockets, deep underground, unscannable zones, energy spikes, shielding materials we haven't cataloged before. It's like someone wanted those areas hidden." Zar exchanged a glance with Elir. They always were good at hiding in plain sight. Another long silence settled over the bridge as Earth rotated slowly on the main screen. It was beautiful, almost heartbreakingly so. Clouds drifted across its atmosphere in lazy spirals. The ocean glinted under the sunlight like liquid sapphire. The forests, though wild and unkempt, were still rich with green. And yet, it was hollow, like a monument left behind by a civilization too proud to crumble. "I don't buy it," Zar said quietly. "I don't believe they vanished without purpose. Not the humans. They don't go quietly." "You think they planned it?" Elir asked. "I think," he said, "they never do anything without purpose. If they disappeared, it wasn't surrender. It was a move. A calculated one." Dran looked up. "To what end?" Zar shook his head. "That's what we're here to find out." For a long time, none of them said anything. The only sound was the hum of the ship's systems, the steady ping of distant sensors, and the soft beat of hearts realizing they might have stepped into something far larger than a ghost story. Then, from behind them, a quiet chime rang out. A proximity alert. Dran's hands darted over the console. "Captain, we've got something. Just entered high orbit. It wasn't there 2 seconds ago." "Is it one of ours?" "No. And it's not drifting. It's maneuvering." Zar stepped forward, claws tightening around the rail. "Show me." The screen zoomed in. There, emerging from Earth's shadow, was a structure sleek, matte black, barely visible to the naked eye. Not a satellite, not debris. Something else. And it was looking directly at them. "Captain," Elir whispered, "I think we just woke something up." Zar didn't respond. Because deep down, he didn't think they had woken it up. He believed it had been awake the whole time. Just waiting, the return to Earth. Captain Zar stood motionless on the bridge of his command ship, the Virex, as the deep blue planet came into view. Earth, the ancient homeworld of humanity. The one place in the galaxy no one had dared to go in hundreds of thousands of years. He had seen the planet in archived images, reconstructed simulations, and artist renderings. But none of that compared to this, to seeing it in person, floating in the black silence of space like a jewel buried in ash. The planet looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. "Approaching Earth's orbital perimeter," reported Lieutenant Elir, the ship's navigation officer. Her voice was calm, but Zar didn't miss the slight edge of tension. No one on board was relaxed. Every species in the Galactic Union had their ghost stories about Earth. Ships that went missing. Unexplained sensor readings. The legend of a world that still defended itself long after its inhabitants had vanished. It was considered suicide to go near the place. But Zar wasn't one to be swayed by ghost story. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the slowly growing image of Earth on the main screen. Green continents, swirling white clouds, vast blue oceans. It looked alive, but every scan they'd run said otherwise. No biosignatures, no electromagnetic chatter, no heat signatures consistent with active cities or machinery. No movement. Just silence. "Still nothing on surface activity?" Zar asked, keeping his voice even. "Nothing, sir," replied Dran, the ship's science officer. The small, six-armed Veru one was hunched over his console, eyes darting across streams of data. "Atmosphere is stable, radiation levels are normal. No sign of urban development, energy output, or orbital activity, except..." Zar turned sharply. Except what? Dran hesitated. There's something. Faint energy patterns in high orbit. Old, maybe decaying. Hard to lock onto. Zar narrowed his eyes. Show me. The screen shifted to a high-resolution view of Earth's orbital space. Among the scattered debris of ancient satellites, something caught his eye. Large objects partially cloaked by space dust and shadows. Not spinning, not drifting stationary. Can you identify those structures? Zar asked. Dran shook his head. Not yet. They're too far out. But they're symmetrical. Manufactured. Artificial. Zar didn't say anything for a moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. Send a probe. Passive scan only. No signal emission. Yes, Captain. A few minutes later, a small drone launched from the underbelly of the Virex, shooting silently toward the mysterious object. The crew watched in tense silence as the feed from the drone began transmitting back. The images were grainy at first, distorted by layers of interference, but they quickly sharpened. What they saw made the room go quiet. There were stations up there, not ruins, not wreckage. Stations. Massive structures, fully intact, hovering in fixed positions above Earth. Black metal arms extended like wings, with faint pulses of blue energy running through conduits and coils. They weren't just intact, they were active. Lights blinked in rhythmic patterns. Power signatures hummed just below detection thresholds. Impossible, Dran whispered. These things are 500,000 years old. They shouldn't be working. Maybe they never stopped, Zar said quietly. Suddenly, the drone feed cut out. Signal lost, the comms officer said, eyes wide. Drone destroyed. How? Zar demanded. No weapon discharge detected, Dran replied quickly. It's like the systems just shut it down remotely. Zar clenched his jaw. We're being watched. The bridge fell silent again. Outside the viewport, Earth continued to rotate slowly beneath them, seemingly untouched by time. A beautiful, quiet world. But now, no one believed it was empty. Zar stood straight and spoke loud enough for the whole bridge to hear. We didn't come here for conquest. We're not invaders. We came to learn, to uncover the truth about what happened to the humans. But I need you all to understand something. We may be standing at the edge of something far greater than we realize. Stay sharp, stay calm, and trust your training. The crew nodded, visibly steadied by their captain's resolve. Bring us into low orbit, Zar ordered. I want eyes on the surface. The ship eased forward, its engines humming softly as it descended into Earth's gravity well. As they approached, the sensors picked up more anomalies, radiation shadows beneath the crust, thermal flares that lasted just a fraction of a second, strange electromagnetic fields that seemed to shift in reaction to their presence. Captain, Dran said suddenly, his voice tense. I'm getting readings from the surface, not life, but something, artificial. It's buried deep underground. How deep? Several kilometers. Several kilometers. Zar stared at the planet, thinking. What are you hiding? He muttered to himself. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarm systems went off. Red lights flashed. The main screen switched to tactical view. We're being targeted, the tactical officer shouted. Multiple lock-ons from orbital positions. Evasive maneuvers, Zar snapped. The Virex rolled hard to starboard, just as a burst of blue-white energy streaked across space, missing them by meters. Another shot followed, then another. The defense systems had activated. They're not trying to destroy us, Elir said, panting as she gripped her console. Those were warning shots. Zar nodded grimly. They want us to know they're awake. Captain, Dran said quietly, this confirms it. Someone is still maintaining these systems after 500,000 years. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Zar turned toward the forward view again. Earth was still there, beautiful, blue, silent, but now no one could look at it the same way. I need answers, Zar said. Send a second probe. This one goes deeper. Full scan of the surface and subsurface structures. I want to know it's alive down there even if it's not breathing." "Yes, Captain." The new probe launched and dropped into Earth's atmosphere. Moments later, images began to flow in. Dense forests reclaiming once great cities, shattered buildings now blanketed in moss and vine, massive craters where ancient battles might have been fought or simulated. But then the probe scanners pierced the surface and everything changed. "Captain," Dran's voice was shaking. "There's an entire facility down there, a megastructure. No signs of age or decay. Power output is astronomical. Any life signs? None. But something is managing the systems. Ghosts with their guns drawn." Captain Zar had never felt fear like that. Not even during the Xylar frontline campaigns when plasma bombs fell like rain and the air was thick with the scent of burnt metal and blood. This, what he felt now, staring at the glowing shapes orbiting Earth, was something deeper. Colder. It was the kind of fear born not from war, but from the sudden realization that you'd trespassed somewhere you were never meant to go. "Status report," Zar ordered, breaking the silence on the Varex bridge. "Shields holding," said the tactical officer. "No impact from the warning shots, but power readings from the defense platforms are climbing. They're tracking our every move." On the screen, the human orbital structures no longer drifted like derelict. They had shifted subtly, purposefully locking into defensive formations. Panels realigned. Weapon bays opened. What was once silent architecture was now a coiled machine. "Captain," Dran spoke next, eyes fixed on his console, "we're detecting automated target acquisition systems. Their response time is immediate. No lag, no hesitation. These platforms are fully operational and fully aware," Zar muttered. He turned to his communications officer. "Any response to our signal?" "No, sir." Still nothing. They had tried several approaches, broadcasts in ancient human frequencies, peaceful messages encoded in dozens of languages, even mathematical patterns meant to signify intelligence and non-aggressions. No reply. And yet, the targeting systems had responded. Zar stared again at Earth, now shielded by a halo of human firepower. It wasn't just that the planet was protected. It was fortified strategically, intelligently, as if someone had expected an approach like this. "They knew," he said aloud. "They knew one day someone would come back." Lieutenant Elliot turned to him. "But if they're all gone, who built this, and who's still running it?" Zar didn't answer. He didn't know. That question had begun gnawing at him the moment the first probe disappeared. Now it screamed in his head like a siren. "Sure," the tactical officer interrupted, voice tense. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement from the surface." Zar's heart stopped for a second. "Show me." The screen flickered. From the massive underground bays revealed by the last probe, something was rising. Not a building. Not an elevator. A ship. No ships. One by one, black silhouettes emerged from the earth. At first, they looked like shadows or fragments of mountains lifting into the sky. But then engines flared to life, smooth hulls lit with soft blue light. Weapon systems unfolded like wings. Sleek, silent warships, each one the size of a city block, rose into orbit with perfect precision. There were dozens, then hundreds. "By the stars," someone whispered on the bridge. The ships took position in orbit around the planet, slipping into formation as if they had done this 1,000 times before. And maybe they had. Maybe this routine had been drilled into them for eons by whoever programmed them or whoever still waited in the depths below. "These are war-ready formations," Dran said quietly. "Tactical gridlocks, interlocking fields of fire. They're defending Earth, actively." Zar's mouth was dry. But who gave the order? No one answered. The fleet outside remained still, but their presence loomed like a mountain over the Vire. The humans were not just defending Earth, they were making a statement. "We are here. We never left. And we will not be disturbed." "Captain," Ellier said. "They're not firing. But they're watching us, waiting." "For what?" Zar asked, mostly to himself. "For a mistake?" The Virax floated in tense stillness among the stars, its crew frozen between awe and terror. Every scan showed the same thing, power signatures decades ahead of anything in the galaxy, targeting arrays focused with microscopic precision, engine tech capable of moving the ships faster than light without a whisper of heat. No organic life. No transmissions, no crew movement. But the ships responded with the instinct of living things. "Try to send a new message," Zar said. "Use the human military protocol from the interwar era. It's risky, but it might get their attention." The comms officer nodded and got to work. Minutes passed. The bridge was deathly quiet. No one even breathed loudly. They all knew what was at stake. These ships had slept through 500,000 years, and they'd woken up angry, or at the very least, alert. Then the ship's alarm chimed again. "New signal," the comms officer said, eyes widening. "It's not from the warships, it's from the surface." Zar snapped toward him. "Can you isolate it?" "I'm working on it. Yes, it's an ancient human encryption protocol. Pre-collapse. But I'm getting partial translation." On the main screen, characters scrolled in a jagged human script. Then they began to resolve into word. "The time has come. The fleet will rise. Earth will reclaim its place." The crew didn't speak. No one needed to. The message was clear. Whatever had been sleeping here wasn't just a security measure. It was a plan. Zar took a slow breath. "Dre, are there more of those ships?" The science officer checked his readings. 100 still underground. Possibly more. "And the ones in orbit?" "Active. All of them. They're syncing to a shared command network. Coordinated." The gravity of it settled on Zar like a physical weight. The humans hadn't vanished in failure. They had prepared. They'd locked away a force of unimaginable power and then vanished knowing that one day someone would come looking. And when they did, Earth wouldn't be unguarded. "Captain," Ellier said suddenly, "we have new telemetry from the outer defense platform." "What is it?" "They're shifting again. Not toward us. Away. Toward deep space." Zar's eyes narrowed. "Toward what?" Ellier hesitated. "Toward the rest of the galaxy." Zar's blood ran cold. He turned back toward the view of Earth. The ships were moving again, this time reorganizing not in a defensive ring, but in a spearhead, a formation designed for one thing: departure. "They're not just waking up," he said. "They're mobilizing." The realization hit hard. This wasn't just about protecting Earth. Whatever had kept these ships dormant was now gone. The command had been given. Earth's fleet, its ancient sleeping armada, was preparing to leave its cradle. And the galaxy was utterly unprepared. "Captain," Dran said, voice low with disbelief, "this fleet, it's powerful enough to challenge the Union." Zar didn't argue. He just whispered the thought echoing in everyone's mind. "They're not just coming back. They're taking back everything. The awakening." Captain Zar couldn't take his eyes off the screen. What had once been an empty orbit was now filled with ships, sleek, dark vessels of impossible size, drifting with quiet power. Earth's ancient fleet had fully awakened, and unlike the first few vessels that rose cautiously from their hidden silos, this new wave moved with absolute certainty. No hesitation, no searching, no error. They knew exactly what they were doing. "All vessels online," Dran reported in a hushed voice, as though speaking too loudly might provoke them. "Command systems are fully synced. No delays between ships. We're witnessing a true hive-level military network." Zar stood at the center of the bridge, gripping the edge of the command console tightly, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Dozens, no, hundreds of human warships were now in orbit, forming a spherical perimeter around Earth. And they were still coming. Every few seconds, another vessel broke the surface. Some rose from oceans, others from mountain ranges, deserts, or craters. Not a single launch site repeated. The planet had been laced with underground hangars, each designed to awaken and deploy its assigned vessel independently, yet in perfect coordination. The scale of it was dizzying. "How is this even possible?" Lieutenant Ellier whispered. "This fleet, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." It was more than the sheer size or firepower. It was the detail, the discipline, the design. Each ship was coated in a smooth, black alloy, absorbing most visible light. Their hulls bore faint, glowing patterns, possibly cooling lines, maybe command nodes. Weapons arrays were concealed under sliding panels, revealing themselves only when the ships aligned into formation. Their engines emitted a soft blue pulse, but not a single heat spike registered on the sensors. It was like the ships had been grown rather than built. "Still no life signs," Drain added, scanning again. "If there's anyone on board, we can't detect them, but the systems are alive and controlled." "From where?" Zar asked, though he already knew. "The surface. Somewhere deep beneath it." Zar took a slow breath and looked out at the planet. Earth's beauty was deceptive. From orbit, it looked like a paradise cloud swirling gently over green continents, sunlight dancing on the oceans. But beneath that surface lay command centers still humming with purpose. Energy signatures pulsing like the heartbeat of a beast too long asleep. And now it had opened its eye. "Captain," said the communications officer, cutting into the silence, "we're receiving another message." Zar turned sharply. "From the surface?" "No, sir. This one's from the fleet." The officer tapped a few keys and the main display blinked, switching to a clean transmission. No encryption, no distortion. It was delivered in perfect modern galactic standard. "We are awake. We will not be ignored." The words hung in the air. Zar stared at them for a long time. They were direct, emotionless. But behind them was something else, something cold and final. A statement, not a request, not a threat, a fact. And facts didn't bluff. "Reply," Zar said. "Now." The officer hesitated. "Well, what should we say?" Zar's mind raced. There was no protocol for this. No scenario in the Galactic Union's database that covered a reawakening of a species believed extinct for 500,000 years. Especially not when that species controlled the most advanced military assets ever seen. "We came as explorers," Zar said carefully. "We're not here to interfere. Send this. We recognize your sovereignty. We request peaceful communication." The officer nodded and transmitted the message. The entire bridge held its breath. Seconds ticked by. Then came the response. "Stand down, observe, do not interfere." Zar exchanged a look with Elir. The message wasn't hostile, but it wasn't exactly friendly either. It was a command. "They don't see us as equals," she said softly. "No," Zar agreed. "They see us as bystanders." The next moments unfolded in eerie silence. The human ships, now fully deployed, began adjusting their positions not defensively, but outward, facing away from Earth, facing the galaxy. "They're preparing for something," Dran said. "This isn't just a defense posture. They're forming into departure lines, launch trajectories." "They're going to leave Earth," Ellier whispered. "They're not just waking up. They're mobilized." "Mobilizing for what?" Zar asked, though deep down he suspected the answer. "For war. For reclamation. For something long planned." Suddenly, the Virax proximity alert flared. "Captain!" the tactical officer barked. "One of the human vessels is on the move, approaching fast." Zar spun toward the screen. A massive warship shaped like a razor-thin spearhead was veering off from its formation. It wasn't targeting them, not yet, but its path was unmistakable. It was scanning them. "We're being analyzed," Dran said, "thoroughly. They're collecting every bit of our ship's specs, energy output, shield harmonics, weapons range. Everything." Zar's fists clench. "Let them. We have nothing to hide." Then, as abruptly as it had approached, the warship peeled off and returned to its formation. The tension in the room eased, but no one relaxed. "Captain," said Elir, "what if they decide we're a threat? What if this fleet isn't just meant to defend Earth, but to retake what was theirs?" Zar finished for her. The thought chilled him. The Galactic Union spanned thousands of systems. Many of those colonies had once belonged to humanity back when they were the dominant species, the explorers, the rulers. After they vanished, those territories were divided, inherited, repurposed. But what if none of it had been abandoned? What if all of it had simply been paused? The bridge lights dimmed for a second, flickering as another massive pulse of energy rippled out from Earth's surface. The ship's system struggled to interpret it, some kind of quantum signal. Not a weapon, but a command. Dran looked up from his console, pale. "That wasn't just to the fleet," he said. "That was broader. It was a network ping. A call to something." Zar's stomach sank. "You think they've got more?" Dran nodded slowly. "I think we've only seen the first wave." Suddenly, ships began moving again. Not chaotically, but with absolute order. A dozen vessels accelerated into high orbit, engines glowing with silent fury. Then another dozen, and another. Within minutes, the fleet had reshaped itself into launch formations pointed toward multiple coordinates across the galaxy. "They're deploying," Elir said. "Not randomly. Strategic points. Likely former colonies, former strongholds." Zar looked around at his crew. They all had the same stunned expression. This wasn't the beginning of a war. This was the continuation of one they had started long before they disappeared. And now, the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The sleepers below. The human warships had risen like ghosts, with teeth, silent, flawless, terrifying. But for all their presence and power, one question still hung over the bridge of the Virax like a storm cloud. Where were the humans? They had scanned for life signs again and again. Nothing. No readings from the ships, no activity in the cities, no chatter on any frequencies. It didn't make sense. The ships weren't drones, not entirely. They responded to something, someone. They coordinated with terrifying intelligence. But there were no visible operators. Captain Zar stood at the edge of the forward observation bay, arms crossed, watching the Black Fleet settle into its new formation above Earth. His thoughts churned like gravity storms. "Dran," he said, still facing the window. "What did the probe find beneath the surface?" The science officer looked up from his console, his expression uneasy. "Initial scans weren't precise. We were focused on the fleet. But I've run deeper penetration sweeps now that the defense systems have stopped targeting us." He paused, then added, "There's something massive under the surface, Captain. Structures, chambers, far deeper than any known military facility." Zar turned. "Show me." The lights dimmed slightly as the main screen lit up with the newest scan. Layer by layer, the crust of the planet peeled back digitally, revealing the hidden world below. Caverns the size of cities, reinforced tunnels winding like veins. And at the core of it all, vaults. Dozens of them, all identical. "Power signatures?" Zar asked. "Consistent. Stable. Each vault has its own dedicated reactor system, still running after 500,000 years." "What's inside?" Dran hesitated. "That's the part you won't believe unless you see it." "Try me." With a few taps, the scan data transformed into a live feed from the most recent surface probe. It had descended through a fissure in one of the mountain ranges, finding a breach in the outer layers of one vault. The feed was grainy, lit only by the probe's scanning light. At first, the camera panned across rows of large mechanical pods, metallic, domed, connected by thick cables and pipes that pulsed with blue light. Then the image focused on one of the pods. Inside, barely visible through the frosted surface, was a face. A human face. A human. Eyes closed, peaceful, unmoving. But alive. The air on the Virex bridge went cold. Zar stepped closer to the screen. "Is that A stasis chamber? Dran nodded. It's more advanced than any stasis tech we've ever seen. Perfect biometric containment. Neural patterns are stabilized. Aging suspended. This isn't a graveyard, Captain. It's a barracks, Zar whispered. Alier leaned forward. How many? Dran pulled up a scan overlay. This vault alone contains over 30,000 pods. We've detected at least 20 similar facilities across the planet. If they're all active. He didn't finish the sentence. Zar finished it for him. Millions. A long silence followed. Everyone on the bridge was processing the same realization. The humans hadn't gone extinct. They hadn't fled. They had gone to sleep. They had planned this. What could make an entire civilization choose stasis? Elier asked quietly. A war? A virus? Or was this always part of the plan? Zar stared at the screen. The pod's occupant hadn't moved an inch, but there was something deeply unsettling about the expression on his face. Calm, certain, like he knew the future already. I don't think they were hiding, Zar said. I think they were waiting. For what? Elier asked. Dran exhaled slowly. For the right moment. For the galaxy to forget them. For the Union to fracture. For technology to catch up. Or maybe for the signal. Zar turned. The one we picked up earlier? Dran nodded. The fleet didn't activate until the surface sent a specific frequency burst. But it wasn't just a call to the warships. It was a global activation command. And now we're detecting secondary pulses directed toward the vaults. Zar looked again at the stasis pod on the screen. They're starting to wake up. Suddenly, the bridge lights flickered. A new signal was coming in this time, not from the ships, not from deep space, but from the surface. Captain, the comms officer said, it's a message. From who? The officer shook his head. There's no sender ID, just text, ancient Terran script. Translating now. The message appeared across the screen in bold white letters. We were never gone. We are the storm. The fleet rises. The people wake. The reclaiming begins. No one spoke. Zar read the message again, slowly, feeling the weight of every word settle into his bones. This wasn't just a reactivation of old defenses. This wasn't just a fleet on autopilot. This was a species returning. They built the perfect strategy, Zar said. Sleep long enough for everyone to forget, leave behind an unbeatable fleet. Program it to protect the planet until the right conditions are met. And when they are awake, the soldiers reclaim what was there. They left nothing to chance, Dran said. This isn't survival, it's resurrection. Alir's hands trembled slightly on her console. Do we warn the Union? Zar didn't answer immediately. He watched the scan as more pods lit up in the darkness below Earth's surface. Systems powering on, life signs stabilizing. People humans stirring after a sleep that had lasted longer than most civilizations. We will, Zar said eventually, but not to stop them. There's no stopping this, not anymore. All we can do now is understand it. Captain, the tactical officer cut in, we're picking up more movement from the fleet. Multiple ships are descending back toward the surface. Controlled landings, not random. Looks like they're retrieving something. Or someone, Zar muttered. They watched as the black warships dipped through the clouds one by one. Each moved with precision, no wasted motion, no delay. Like hands reaching down to pull their people from the earth. It was happening. The fleet wasn't just waking up. It was reintegrating. Send a probe to follow one of the ships, Zar ordered. Keep your distance. I want to know exactly where they're going and who they're picking up. The officer nodded and launched the drone. Zar turned back to the screen, to the face frozen in the pod. This is what they waited for, he said quietly. The galaxy thought they were dead, that Earth was history. He clenched his jaw. They've been beneath our feet the whole time, reclaiming what was never lost. Captain Zar stood motionless in the command center of the Virex, the massive view screen before him still glowing with the last message Earth had broadcast. We were never gone. We are the storm. The fleet rises, the people wake, the reclaiming begin. He didn't speak. No one on the bridge did. Outside the ship, Earth loomed large and beautiful, a tranquil blue and white sphere framed by silence and shadow. But now, it was more than a symbol. It was a force, a machine, a mind. Whatever the humans had done, they had done it with foresight and control. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't survival. This was orchestration. A calculated return to power. Dran was the first to break the silence. "Captain, I decoded more of the embedded signal structures," he said, voice low. "It's not just a warning, it's an activation key, a kind of master code." Zar turned. "Activation for what?" "For everything," Dran replied. "Ships, facilities, defense grids. Even artificial intelligence is dormant in other systems. It's like a network reboot. They're syncing Earth's core systems with assets scattered throughout the galaxy." Zar frowned. "How far does it go?" "Farther than we thought," Dran said. "Their reach didn't end at the edge of their territory. They embedded silent systems into former colonies, deep space relay stations, even worlds now claimed by other species. Places we thought had been abandoned or stripped for salvage. They were just asleep, and now they're waking up," Ilir muttered. "Yes," Dran said, "and not randomly. With purpose, they're following a schedule." Zar stepped back and stared at the display. It showed a growing web of red points across the galaxy, each one flashing as another ancient human node came online. It was spreading like fire through dry grass. "Have we intercepted any more direct transmissions?" Zar asked the comms officer. "One, sir," the officer replied, visibly unsettled. "It was brief and personal. Play it." The screen blinked. A new message appeared. It was text only, yet something about its simplicity made it feel more ominous than any show of force. "We gave the galaxy time. We watched. We waited. Now we return, not to conquer, but to finish what we began. The galaxy forgot who built the foundation. We will remind them. Earth does not rise. Earth reclaims." Ilir stared at the words. "They think everything built after their disappearance still belongs to them." Zar clenched his jaw. "Because to them, it does." There was a strange logic to it. While the rest of the galaxy had believed humanity was dead, they had merely stepped back, hibernating while their enemies grew old, fragmented, divided. Now they were returning not with vengeance, but with a mandate. A mission, and they weren't asking permission. "Captain," Dran said, "we've traced part of the network signal toward a relay station on the edge of the Kalos expanse. That sector hasn't been visited in centuries." "It used to be human," Ilir noted, "one of their original colony." Zar nodded. "Send a long-range probe. I want to know what's lighting up out there." "Aye, sir." The bridge returned to its quiet rhythm only now. Every beep and flicker carried a heavier weight. Each new signal could be another piece of the puzzle. Another reminder that the humans had never left. They had simply gone dark, waiting for their moment. Minutes later, the probe data came in. "Captain," said Dran, "we have visuals." The screen filled with images. A once dead orbital station was now fully powered. Its solar panels extended, weapons arrays glowing faintly. Below it, on the surface of a cold gray planet, stood a city. Not ruins, a sea. Lights were flickering on in sequence. Power surging through buried lines. Drones lifting into the air like insects emerging from a long winter. In the center of it all was a towering structure made of black alloy and shimmering energy barriers. "Their architecture," Ilir whispered. "Original human design," Dran confirmed. "Nothing repurposed, nothing alien, it's theirs." Zar's heart sank. "It was all planned," he said. "Every outpost, every satellite, every city they left behind, all of it seeded with sleeper tech, waiting for this signal, waiting for the moment the galaxy was too fractured to resist. And now they'll take it all back," Ilir said. Zar shook his head slowly. No, they won't take it. They'll activate it. They don't need to conquer. They'll just switch the lights back on, and everything built on top of it will fall into their hands. The scale of it was staggering. It wasn't an invasion. It was a repossession. "Captain," the comms officer said, "we're receiving another encoded packet. It's marked Priority Red, Origin, Earth. Put it through." This time, the screen didn't display text. It showed a person. A woman, middle-aged by human standards. Her hair was silver, but her eyes burned with intelligence. She wore a uniform with no insignia, no medals. Just a black suit, utilitarian, precise. "Greetings to the observing vessel," she said calmly. "We are aware of your presence. You are not seen as a threat. You are not seen as an ally. You are a variable." Zar didn't move. "My name is Commander Alira Va. I speak for Earth's Transitional Authority. This message is not a warning. It is a courtesy." She paused. "We do not seek to destroy what exists, but we will not tolerate the misuse of what we built. The world seeded with our technology, our infrastructure, our legacy will return to alignment. Those who adapt will be welcomed. Those who resist will be corrected." She tilted her head slightly. "We are not cruel. We are inevitable." Then the message cut out. No further explanation. No demand. Just the calm, terrifying confidence of a civilization that believed the galaxy still belonged to it. Zar turned toward the bridge crew. No one spoke. No one blinked. They all knew what they just heard. "Captain," Dran said slowly, "we've just received an alert from the Galactic Council." Zar arched a brow. "Let me guess. They want answers." "Yes, sir," and they're demanding a response. Zar looked back at the screen, where Earth floated, silent but alive, no longer forgotten, no longer passive. "You tell them Earth's not dead," he said. "Tell them it was never dead. Tell them it's awake and it remembers everything." He paused. "And they should too." The lights on the bridge dimmed as more signals appeared across the star map, each one blinking red, each one marking the return of a long silent beacon. The humans had re-emerged not as warriors, but as architects reclaiming a design that had been hijacked in their absence. And they were doing it with the certainty of people who had never once considered the possibility of failure. Zar watched as Earth's orbit filled with coordinated movement ships, transports, satellites, realigning in perfect unison. It was just the beginning. And the rest of the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The plan. Captain Zar had faced enemies before. Real ones. Armies with claws and fangs, ships packed with weapons, empires that burned planets just to make a point. But nothing he'd ever encountered felt as overwhelming as the calm silence coming from Earth. Not the ships, not the satellites. Not even the bunkers pulsing with power beneath the surface. It was the silence that terrified. Because silence meant control. And now, that silence was breaking. The bridge of the VRX was quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Every crew member stood frozen as the latest message from Earth played across the main screen. Unlike previous communications, this one was not a warning or a veiled threat. It was a transmission of purpose. It was the truth. A woman's voice, human, but clear, firm, and emotionless, filled the room. "We are the product of pattern, of error and correction, of fire, collapse, and redesign. We did not evolve to conquer. We evolved to survive beyond time, beyond decay, beyond chaos." A still image accompanied the message. A chamber, vast and stark, filled with rows of illuminated consoles. At the center stood a figure, the same woman who had identified herself earlier as Commander Alira Va. 500,000 years ago, we left the galaxy to itself. Not because we lost, not because we were threatened. We left because we understood. Power without stability is cancer. Growth without order is entropy. The galaxy was not ready to be led, and we were not ready to lead it. Zar leaned forward, jaw tight. So we withdrew, not in defeat, but in strategy. We shut down the machine. We buried the gears. We let the stars burn and fade without our hand upon them. The screen changed again, showing images from across the galaxy. Human-built cities abandoned long ago, colonies half swallowed by sand, derelict stations left to drift for eons. But now they were waking, lighting up, rebuilding themselves piece by piece. We watched civilizations rise and fall. We studied your wars, your alliances, your fracturing. We cataloged your behavior, every empire, every failure, and we waited. The image returned to Alira's face. She stared straight into the lens. Now we begin again. The message ended, but the implications didn't. Zar turned away from the screen, heart pounding beneath his plated chest. That wasn't a message, he muttered. It was a doctrine. They didn't survive history, Alir said beside him, voice low. They wrote a new one and put it on pause. Drain chimed in from his station. Captain, I've broken into a secondary stream embedded in the transmission. It's not meant for public receivers. It's a raw data file, deep encoded protocol instructions. It's their plan, the entire architecture. Zar moved to his side. Show me. Dran brought the file up. The screen filled with diagrams, mathematical flows, logistics models, long-form predictive simulations that extended thousands of years into the future. At first glance, it looked like the work of a galactic intelligence agency, or an AI overlord with infinite memory. But this wasn't surveillance. This was design. Captain, Dran said, this isn't a military plan, it's socio-political engineering. They've mapped the current galactic landscape and laid out phase-by-phase steps to reintegrate it into a unified structure. Zar scanned the display. Systems were color-coded green for immediate activation, yellow for stabilizing influence, red for correction zones. Correction zones? Zar asked. Dre nodded. Their word, defined as sectors under ideological fragmentation or inefficient socio-political repetition. Zar blinked. You mean places where governments keep collapsing and restarting? Yes. According to their simulations, it's evidence of systemic failure. They've already identified several Union territories as in need of restructuring. Elir frowned. They're planning to fix the galaxy. No, Zar said darkly. They're planning to replace it. The room fell silent again. Because now the truth was no longer just theory or interpretation, it was laid bare in raw data. Humanity hadn't left because they were defeated or driven out. They had left because the galaxy wasn't ready for the kind of civilization they intended to build, so they hit pause. And now they were pressing play. The galaxy as it stood was about to be overwritten. Captain, the comms officer said suddenly, another visual message is coming through. This one, it's different. They want us to see this. Zar gave a nod. The screen shifted. Now they saw the interior of an ancient facility deep underground, reinforced with material beyond current science. In the center, a vast chamber filled with massive quantum cores. Floating in suspension above them were thousands of glowing data clusters, what looked like thought patterns, memories, consciousness streams. Alira's voice returned, but this time it was recorded live. When we left, we did not abandon our people. We stored our leaders, our thinkers, our architects digitally, biologically, mentally, and now we are restoring them. Each of these minds was chosen not for conquest, but for continuity. They will guide the restructuring. They are the architects of tomorrow. The camera panned upward. One of the pods pulsed with new light. Within it, suspended in an amber-like field, was a face. Human, young, eyes closed, peaceful. They are waking now. And when they do, the first generation of Earth's true future will rise with them. The screen went dark again. Dran whispered, "They saved themselves as code." Zar looked around the bridge. Every officer was frozen, trying to grasp what they'd just seen. The magnitude of it, the arrogance, the brilliance, the terrifying precision. They didn't just plan to return, Tsar said. They planned to rebuild the galaxy in their image, one sector at a time. Elier glanced at him. What happens to those who resist? Tsar didn't answer, because deep down, he already knew. This wasn't a conventional empire. There would be no demands for surrender, no ultimatums. Earth wasn't sending diplomats or emissaries. They weren't negotiating. They were implementing. Captain, said the comms officer, the Galactic Council is demanding a full report. They want to know if Earth is preparing an invasion. Tsar let out a breath. Tell them no. The officer blinked. No? Tell them Earth is preparing something worse, Tsar said. They're preparing integration. He turned back to the screen one last time. Earth remained there, quiet and still, not a threat. Not yet, but no longer asleep. And very soon, nothing would ever be the same again.